Ethan swore he left his keys on the table. He distinctly remembered the metallic clink against the wood, yet the table lay bare. He checked his pockets, his bag, even the refrigerator, a wave of irrationality washing over him. There they were, back on the table, gleaming innocently under the kitchen light. "Just tired," he muttered, chalking it up to a long day. Days later, the incident repeated itself, this time with his phone. It vanished from his hand, only to reappear on his desk, plugged into its charger. A chill snaked down his spine. This wasn't mere absent-mindedness, something was wrong, deeply wrong. The unease festered, growing with each passing day. Faces flickered in crowds, morphing into strangers with familiar smiles. Conversations ended abruptly, resuming hours later with no recollection of the pause. His world, once solid and reassuring, now felt like a shimmering mirage, on the verge of dissolving into nothingness. Fear, raw and primal, began to consume him. He was adrift in a sea of uncertainty, the once comforting rhythm of his life replaced by a discordant symphony of the bizarre. He craved answers, a lifeline to sanity in a world that seemed to be unraveling at its seams. Ethan found himself drawn to a quaint bookstore he'd often passed but never entered. The musty smell of old paper was oddly comforting. He gravitated towards the unexplained phenomena section, his fingers tracing the spines of books on ESP, astral projection, and parallel universes. A particular title, The Parallel Observer, jumped out at him. That night, sleep evaded him. Images from the book swirled in his mind, theories about alternate realities and quantum entanglement taking root in his fear-fertilized consciousness. He recalled a recurring dream, vivid and unsettling, of a life subtly different from his own. A different job, a different house, a nagging sense of something forgotten. The line between dreams and reality began to blur. Names escaped him, replaced by unfamiliar ones that felt oddly right, only to revert back without a trace. He'd find himself in unfamiliar places, his presence met with confused stares and hushed whispers. It was as if he were a ghost, flickering in and out of existence. Desperation gnawed at him. He confided in friends, only to be met with concern and suggestions of therapy. He consulted doctors, enduring endless tests that yielded no answers, only patronizing looks and prescriptions for stress medication. He was alone, lost in a labyrinth of his own fractured reality. Panic attacks became a regular occurrence. The world around him shifted at random, faces morphing, buildings rearranging themselves before his eyes. He became a recluse, afraid to leave his apartment, dreading the next inexplicable event. His once organized life was in shambles. One evening, amidst a particularly severe episode, Ethan stumbled upon an online forum dedicated to unexplained phenomena. He poured his heart out, his fingers flying across the keyboard, recounting his experiences with a raw honesty born of desperation. To his surprise, a reply came within minutes. "You are not alone," the message read. It was from a user named Quantum Leap, who claimed to have experienced similar phenomena. They exchanged messages for hours, Ethan finding solace in the realization that someone believed him, that he wasn't going insane. Quantum Leap suggested Ethan seek out a Professor Thompson, a physicist who had written extensively on theoretical physics and the possibility of parallel universes. Ethan was hesitant at first, fearing further ridicule, but desperation outweighed his apprehension. He had nothing to lose. Professor Thompson's office was a chaotic mess, overflowing with books, papers, and strange contraptions that wouldn't have looked out of place in a science fiction film. The professor himself was a study in contrasts, a towering figure with a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through Ethan. Ethan recounted his experiences, his voice trembling at times. The professor listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Ethan was finished, a long silence filled the room. Ethan waited, his heart pounding in his chest. "Mr. Blake," the professor finally spoke, his voice deep and resonant. "What you're describing is not a malfunction of the mind, but perhaps a malfunction of reality itself." He went on to explain the theory of parallel universes, of infinite possibilities branching out with every decision, every quantum event. In rare instances, Professor Thompson continued, the barriers between these realities can weaken, allowing for crossover. He postulated that Ethan possessed a unique neurological anomaly, a hypersensitivity to these quantum fluctuations that allowed him to shift between these parallel realities. The professor called it the parallel observer effect. Section 5. Navigating the Multiverse. Ethan felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. His experiences, while terrifying, were not hallucinations but glimpses into other realities, other versions of himself. He wasn't going mad. He was a traveler, an explorer of the multiverse. Professor Thompson became his guide, his mentor. He devised tests, monitored Ethan's fluctuations, and helped him develop techniques to control his transitions, to ground himself within a specific reality. It was a slow, arduous process, fraught with setbacks and unexpected jumps. Ethan learned to recognize the signs of an impending shift, a tingling sensation, a metallic taste in his mouth, a sudden change in air pressure. He learned to focus on his senses, on grounding himself in the present moment, to anchor himself to his chosen reality. He discovered that his choices, however small, influenced the trajectory of his shifts. A different book, a different route home, a different conversation could all lead to a different reality. He was no longer a passive observer but an active participant in the grand tapestry of the multiverse. Section 6. The Anchor and the Storm. Professor Thompson believed that by identifying the source of Ethan's anomaly, they could potentially neutralize it, anchor him permanently to his original reality. He developed a device, a complex network of sensors and electromagnetic emitters, designed to stabilize Ethan's quantum signature. The first few attempts were unsuccessful. Ethan would experience heightened fluctuations, brief but intense glimpses into countless realities, before being violently thrown back into his own. The experience left him drained, physically and emotionally. The professor, however, remained undeterred. He refined his calculations, adjusted the device's parameters, his belief in his theory and his concern for Ethan fueling his determination. He knew the risks, the potential consequences of tampering with the fabric of reality, but he also recognized the profound implications of Ethan's condition. Finally, after weeks of trial and error, they achieved a breakthrough. The device hummed to life, bathing Ethan in a warm, pulsating light. He felt a sense of calm descend upon him, a feeling of being anchored, of belonging. For the first time in months he felt truly present, grounded in his own reality. Section 7. Return to sender. The stabilization process was agonizingly slow. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Ethan, confined to the professor's lab, clung to the hope of a normal life. He missed the mundane routine, the comforting predictability of his old existence. Slowly, the fluctuations subsided. The shifts became less frequent, less intense. He could go days without experiencing a jump, the world around him remaining blessedly constant. He ventured outside, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. The fear, the disorientation, gradually gave way to a sense of wonder, of gratitude. Professor Thompson, ever cautious, continued to monitor Ethan, his initial scientific curiosity now tinged with a fatherly concern. He had grown fond of Ethan, admiring his resilience, his willingness to confront the unknown. He knew that Ethan would never be the same, that the experience had irrevocably altered his perception of reality. Finally, the day came when Professor Thompson declared him stable. The device was deactivated, the constant hum replaced by an unsettling silence. Ethan stood on the precipice of his old life, a stranger returning home after a long, perilous journey. Section 8. Scars of the Infinite. Ethan stepped back into his apartment, the familiar surroundings both comforting and alien. The humdrum objects of his former life held a new significance, each one a testament to the reality he had almost lost. He ran his fingers along the worn spine of a book, marveling at its solidity. Life resumed its rhythm, but it was a different Ethan who walked the streets, who interacted with the world. He carried the scars of his journey, the knowledge that reality was not a singular fixed entity, but a fluid, ever-shifting landscape of infinite possibilities. He cherished the simple things, the warmth of the sun on his face, the laughter of friends, the taste of his morning coffee. He found joy in the mundane, in the comforting predictability of his regained existence. The fear had receded, replaced by a profound sense of wonder, a deep-seated awe at the vastness of the multiverse he now knew existed. Yet, a part of him yearned for the unknown, for the thrill of exploration, for the glimpse into other lives, other possibilities. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was merely a visitor in this reality, a traveler passing through. Section 9. The Unanswered Question. Life settled into a new normal. Ethan returned to work, reconnected with friends, and even started dating again. He kept his experiences largely to himself, sharing them only with Professor Thompson, their bond forged in the crucible of the extraordinary. The professor, true to his nature, continued his research, driven by the tantalizing mysteries Ethan's case had unveiled. He published his findings, carefully omitting any identifying details, sparking both excitement and controversy within the scientific community. Ethan, meanwhile, couldn't escape the lingering question. Was he truly anchored, or was it only a matter of time before the barriers weakened again, before he was once more drawn into the swirling vortex of the multiverse? He knew, deep down, that a part of him hoped for the latter. As he drifted off to sleep each night, he couldn't help but wonder, which reality awaited him when he closed his eyes? The answer, he knew, lay somewhere in the quantum foam. in the infinite possibilities that shimmered just beyond the veil of his perception.